Good day, and welcome to another episode of Masonic Curators. We're still here in Concord, Massachusetts, in the beautiful Concord Masonic Temple. My name is Keith Mackinnon, and I am joined here today by my good old friend,
the Reverend Henry Istvan Peirce.
Yes, you get to make the middle name.
Oh, yes, right, yeah.
Yeah, get to make the middle name.
Right, worshipful and reverend.
Yes, and even though you're a past master of Amicable Lodge, you are a right worshipful because...
I am one of 6 Grand Chaplains for the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
And are you still currently also Grand Chaplain for the Grand Lodge Chapter and Council?
Yes, I am. Yes, we're both the Grand Captain and Grand Council, yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. So you do a lot of traveling. You get to see a lot of good stuff.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No.
A lot of magnificent buildings.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Which I just love. I love going and seeing how Freemasonry is different and how it's, in some ways, how it's shaped by the buildings that they're in. And I also just love buildings that were made for the Masonic Lodge. I mean, this room is absolutely astounding. Which, after being a Mason for 31 years, I've never been in this building till now. So, oh, thank you, Keith, for inviting me. This is great.
Hank brought some things here today that has been passed down in his family, and I wanted Hank to present the items today because with the older membership that are passing away and the declining membership, many of the children and grandchildren are not becoming Masons like we had. Like my father was a Mason, my grandfather was a Mason, I'm a Mason, the same in your family, but that role isn't continuing today. It does in some cases, but not so much today. It's mostly friends or acquaintances,
yes,
colleagues that we refer to as the fraternity. But with the decline of membership and these families having all of this, what I call fondly junk, is what do we do with it all?
Yeah.
Some families just have treasure troves of stuff, and whenever I see somebody selling something on eBay, or especially on some of these other sites like Cowhern's site, Masonic Antiques and Collectibles, you always have somebody pipe in and say, well, that should go back to the lodge. Or that's not the property for you to sell, that's the property of the lodge. Yes and no, and that gets into a touchy point, but again, a lot of lodges don't want this stuff because they've already got a ton of stuff. So what do you do with all this stuff? The other thing is, and I wanted Hank to bring the stuff down, is I see so much today being sold by the family.
Yeah.
A guy would get on there and, he might need the bucks. Times are hard for some. And they're not a Mason. They may not have children or a son.
Yeah.
And they don't foresee a future down the road that one of their children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren are going to become a Mason. What do you do with it? So, they sell it. I used to see that all the time. This was my grandfather's past commander sword, or this was his jewel, or this was his coin, or this was this. And, and you got the people writing in all the time, that's got to go back to the lodge.
Yeah.
But in reality, this is your family stuff. This doesn't belong to the lodge. This is your family stuff.
Yeah.
But we see that all the time, and it's heartbreaking because I really want to write to the people and say, especially when he's got like a past commander sword, it's, dude, I know you're not going to be a Mason, or maybe you've got, you don't have a son to become a Mason.
Yeah.
Keep it in the family.
Which I think is also part of the things. I mean, so I brought, it's easy to become a Masonic hoarder of stuff. When I first joined Amicable, I remember someone saying that first night giving me some pins, and someone saying in 10 years you're gonna have a drawer and a bookshelf. And I've got a drawer and a couple of bookshelves of books and things, and then there's the stuff I've stuff my own stuff, and then at my parents' house. My dad had to move down to the first floor for ease for him to get around, and I was going through some stuff, and I found the cupboard and found not only his diploma but my grandfather's diplomas for Blue Lodge and Chapter and Council and Scottish Rite and Commandery. you know, and so, you know, so there's a family connection, which is great. My dad also had just a bunch of other stuff, you know, I brought in a case that my dad had sort of said, oh yeah, here's the stuff, knowing there's more stuff, but like, you know, and in there was a bunch of great stuff, which I'll show you.
So what did you bring?
So the first thing I wanted to bring, because this is, you know, because I know how there's a certain love of the shrine here. I brought my grandfather's fez. I don't belong to the shrine, not yet. My wife has said that I can't join anything with funny hats. In fact, when she saw this at the house, she was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the website." So this is my grandfather's fez. It's actually quite small. I tried putting it on my head and it's just too small. But it is lovely. And then this is my father's fez. My father had joined Masonry during college up at the University of Vermont, and he joined the shrine up there, Mount Sinai, which is Mount Sinai, and they were the third shrine ever created, and so they have on their fezes the number 3, which I think is kind of cool. You know, he's this thing, and also Vermont, like, you know, good for them, good on them for being the, you know, number 3 shrine too.
So, real quick, yep, he's got the tassel. He's got the tassel holder, which is the rhinestone, if I may.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's got the cloth insert of where it was sold by on the Mount Sinai one, and this is the stitched and embroidered fez. But as John has mentioned before, that a lot of times the pharaoh's head or the sphinx's head is sometimes missing, and it's also which I think is kind of cool, these little plastic rhinestones that are in it. And then you got, and if I may, the left fold also has the silk. I believe the silk. Yes, it has the silk insert of where this came from, which unfortunately I don't have my glasses, so I can't read that. The leather band, and this is all embroidered with also the metal sphinx head, which is really cool. If John was here right now, unfortunately he's doing something else, he would probably tell you exactly what that did, but you know what the dates are anyway, so because they were your family. So
but it's great, you know, and this, I even have like the little carrying case, little cloth carrying case for this, which is also just a lovely thing. The same way that many lodges merge and you end up with a bunch of ritualistic jewels and, you know, and rods and all this stuff from, you know, from different lodges or chapters and stuff, all kind of combining into one place. It's the same thing with our family. So I have here from brother John Crothers, I believe it's John Crothers, number 91, who was a member of number 91 Rising Sun Lodge, the Egyptian Constitution. He was in the British Army, serving in Egypt, and I have his.
Now, who is he related?
So he's my mother on my mother's side.
Yeah, both sides of
the family. So my mother's father's side, and you know, and then somebody went like, oh, Ken's a Mason, great, here, Ken, you know, and so it got down to my dad, and then got down to me, but look at this lovely.
They used the green.
Right? The same way that we use the blue as a symbol of heaven, you know, of the Sardic heaven. In Muslim countries, it's green, you know, for the sort of the lushness of paradise. So that's the color. You know, the 3 rosettes that you would see on a British
exactly
apron.
I'm glad you brought that up, because they were under British rule. Yep. Therefore, a lot of the regalia is going to be British, because you have the 3 rosettes, which represents, do you know what?
The 3 degrees.
Very good. The 3 degrees. Now, also the clip. Do you ever notice the clip for the belt?
Which is the snake, the
serpent.
The serpent. Yeah.
Right. And now the balls and chains. Now, supposedly there should be 7 balls.
Oh, 1, 2. Yes.
Thank you. And that represents the 7 constellations.
Oh.
There's supposed to be 7 links to the chain, but some could have more. But then also the bar, in this case, is the level.
Oh man, I had no idea.
So there is Masonic, you know, meaning behind the apron itself and what it's made from and for. But yeah, it's amazing. And when you get to the higher degrees, there's even more concealed meaning behind it. But that's cool.
It's great,
and it's leather,
and it's leather, and it's in great shape.
and it's going to be more than likely no manufacturer. Or
Oh yes, here we go. It says Cronin Masonic Regalia Maker, New Brompton, and I don't know if New Brompton's in England or Australia or where, but
but more than likely, because if I may tell,
yeah.
this is kid leather.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know what kid leather is?
From like it's a goat. It's goat
Baby.
skin, but yeah.
Baby goat, because it's so soft.
Yeah.
They still make gloves today, but a lot of the English aprons were made from this kid leather, and it retains its softness all these years later.
Yeah.
So how old is that?
I will tell you how old it is because I have also his diploma, which is in. Now this is very, very delicate, so you have to be very careful with this.
I'm not touching it.
Are you sure? Because I might need your help. Which is in, 1907.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
That's unbelievable. This leather is still as soft to the touch.
14 years, yeah.
14 years later. Wow.
Yeah.
And you have his case, which is original?
Original, yep, with his name on it and stuff, and a very.
Now this is very typical of English, because they used either small suitcases or little briefcases like this that was just big enough. The aprons sadly were folded, so if you find an older one, a lot of times the leather will be cracked because it's been folded for so long. But they would fold up the apron, have the diplomas in it as well, because if they were traveling men, they needed the diplomas. And also, if they joined certain Masonic bodies, they would have their Masonic jewels. Like a lot of English lodges will have a membership jewel that you can wear, and you can wear that wherever you are in the world. And the Royal Arch chapter had one, and so on and so forth. So it was big enough just to put everything in it. And just carry it around like that. So.
Yeah. And my mom is from Northern Ireland, and so all of her a lot of the things we have is, come from Northern Ireland, and so here's this is Archibald Kerr and Uncle Archie. I think it's my mom. So he's my mother's uncle, Uncle Archie. And so here is his diploma from the Grand Lodge of Ireland, and then he has I also have his his diploma for the Grand Chapter and the Commandery and all these other things, which are just which are great. And as I was saying, I have both. I obviously have my diploma. I have my father's diploma. I have my grandfather's diploma. And I was actually thinking, it'd be nice to have them all in one, one case. Maybe even just sort of fanned out. I don't know. It'd be a very cool thing to have
Nice.
those three together. And then the last thing I brought, there's more stuff in that case, but I didn't bring it out. But this is my great grandfather, Frederick Bayless. He was my grandmother's father. Frederick Bayless was master of Washington Lodge number 3 in Burlington, Vermont, and he was actually master of his lodge in 1919. Oh, actually, I wrote this down. He 1917. He was a physician. He actually taught at the University of Vermont at the medical school there, and he was a physician. And this was at the start of what was known as the Spanish flu. Just after the end of towards the end of the First World War, and as my father tells the story that he was one of the last doctors standing. He'd been out visiting patients all day, came home, said to his wife, "I'm just feeling really tired. I'm just gonna lay down in the girls' room," and then he never got up again. He died there in the house, and leaving a widow and 3 daughters and a young son. And but he was also master of his lodge. He was master of Washington Lodge number 3, and so in honor of him, they the past master's jewel that they were going to give to him, they gave to the family, and so it's come on down to me. It really is a lovely piece. I think perhaps at some point, perhaps after my father passes away, I'll return this to Washington Lodge number 3. One of the nice things that actually we have in Amicable, we have a past master's jewel that the presiding master gets to wear. It was given. It was the past master's jewel that was prepared for worshipful Stover jewel. And he died in office, and I thought this might be a nice. Of course, I've had a little contact with the good folks up at Washington Lodge number 3 in Burlington, but I thought that might be a nice thing.
I'm glad you brought that, because actually, when COVID hit, the secretary reached out to me because he still thought I was the lodge historian, which I'm not. But he asked me, he said, can you look up what our brethren did during the influenza pandemic?
Oh, yeah.
Because here in Massachusetts, and we did an episode down in Chepachet with the master, because you and I have both masters at the same time during this COVID, how COVID affected Freemasonry. It's the first time that I've ever known that Freemasonry stopped.
Yeah.
Basically. So the lodge asked me to do some research. What happened during 1918, during the pandemic? Did the lodge, like COVID, stop? And it didn't.
Yeah.
It continued to roll on just as it does today. They did candidates, they met monthly, they had dinners, they did everything. The pandemic wasn't thought of like the COVID today.
Yeah.
And so that's probably one of the reasons how it spreads fast. But
and also, of course, it was also they were just coming out of the First World War, where there were just massive numbers of deaths, and so people were already sort of still shocked about this. But the same thing was true with churches too. I mean, there was I've actually found signs from churches saying churches closed today, because of an outbreak of influenza. Mm-hmm. But they were back open the next Sunday, that sort of thing.
But I did some quick research. The 1918 influenza pandemic, 500 million people worldwide were infected.
Yeah.
50 million worldwide died. What's interesting, though, we had more deaths here in the U.S. by COVID than of the pandemic.
Oh, really?
675,000 died.
Well, I guess it was also affected different ages too, right? So that's
children under 5 were the highest percentage rate.
Wow.
From getting that disease at that time.
Yeah.
But an interesting fact, and I pointed this out to Andrew when I did the research, and I didn't know this until I did research. And this is one thing that you guys out there, do some research on your buildings, because you never know. Some Masonic temples here in the U.S. were actually used as hospitals during that pandemic, because of the hospitals couldn't handle the overflow. So these were basically people who were less infected, seriousness, and were done by the Red Cross. Red Cross are the ones that use the Masonic temples.
Yeah, and they needed a place to put up a number of beds and a big lodge room sort of thing.
Banquet halls and stuff downstairs. So I mentioned that. It was kind of funny. Imagine because lodges didn't stop.
Yeah.
So your banquet hall, you probably couldn't have dinner, but your banquet hall is filled with sick people, and you're upstairs having a Masonic lodge meeting.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird if you think about it. Now I have to ask you this question. I know it's going to be a little touchy for you. I know you personally. I've known you now for
almost 32 years. Yeah.
You have 2 wonderful daughters.
Yeah.
That's it. I know you're not going to have any more kids.
No, right, yeah.
You don't have a son. Though the girls can become women Freemasons or co-masonry if they wanted to. What's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly thought about that, and and thinking about our secretary, Andy Grove, who joined Masonry because his wife's father was very active, and so we'll see who if my daughters get married and that I can try
Put it
to
under a son-in-law? Okay.
that sort of thing. But it is certainly one of those things you kind of go, right. I mean, I think that also that sense of, obviously like a jewel to go back to a lodge certainly makes sense. Yeah, I have no idea whatever happened to Egyptian lodge, number 91. I'm sure it folded, as Freemasonry in the Middle East, even though I'm sure this was under an Irish constitution. I do have Archie Kerr, my mom's uncle Archie, the things we have, and I also have one of his aprons, and I know that lodge is still survives in Ireland. But yeah, certainly one of those things too. You kind of go, oh wow, that's too bad. That those things happen.
Yeah, I don't have much at home. I mean, I have my jewels, which you go back. So my aprons, I don't know what's ever going to happen with them. That'll be up to my wife to decide. But I've already told my wife now that my commandery sword I bought is my past commander sword.
Yeah.
I said, I paid over $500+ for that.
Yeah.
Back, 20-something years ago. I said, this is not going back. It's not the commanderies.
Yeah. Right.
This is mine. I bought it. But my son isn't a Mason.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's ever going to be a Mason.
Yeah.
Whether my daughter's going to have a husband one day, and maybe I don't know. But in any case, it's going to happen. I'm just going to pass the sword down to my son.
Yeah.
And if he just wants to hang it over a mantle or throw it in the corner or
Exactly.
put it under the bed at least. And it's got my name on it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it could be one of these things too that will become part of family lore that, that 2 generations from now, they'll be like, what's that sword? Well, Keith, he was our great grandfather. I think it was a Civil War sword, it'll be, and, so who knows, how these things will get, and then maybe, another generation, someone else will be a big family, we'll be a Mason, we'll be into family history and that sort of stuff and be like, oh my gosh, look what we found.
Yeah, and my great grandson will then turn around and sell it on eBay for about $1,000.
Well, yeah,
a little vacation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's nothing wrng with that too.
No, there's nothing wrong.
And of course,
that'll be dead and buried. So
that's right. Exactly right. I mean, and the other thing is too. I mean, certainly there are pieces that out there in the world that are historic and are important and are the last surviving things. But other ones, you kind of go, what makes something really rare is that the other ones disappeared.
Yeah.
So there's also that too. That
Well, I want to thank you very much for bringing the things down today. Like I said, it's basically because I see so much, especially online today, with people, and they I hate to see them when they put on this was my grandfather's. It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Oh, this was my great uncle's, or this was my great grandfather's.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, keep it. Keep it. But you also don't know what they have at home.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they could still have their grandfather's 1951 Cadillac in mint condition.
Yeah.
What's a sword to a...
Right. I mean, a few years ago, I went, a minister that I'd known had passed away, elderly man had passed away, and his daughters, who I knew, asked me to come to their house and look through his library. What books are important? Are there any books that are rare? Is there anyone who could use these books? So I took a bunch of the library, of his library, and was able to give them out to other seminary students, and which was great. And then I was looking around, and he had his grandfather's past commander jewel from a commandery up in Maine, and I was able to reach out to that commandery and sort of say, I spoke to the daughters and sort of said, this belongs to this commandery up in Maine, and here are the guys, and so they made contact and they were able to return that to the commandery, and I think they actually went to a meeting of the commandery to present the jewel back, which is great, which is like exactly what you want, so So it's not just like, somebody's meeting up at the Howard Johnson's, parking lot, and you got, here's a paper bag full of all this stuff, but like here's this, because it makes this person alive. It makes this person that they never knew, alive, and they're grateful for not only the leadership, they're grateful for the jewels, but also grateful for the leadership and the connection, too. And it also makes everyone kind of go, oh yeah, Freemasonry's not that bad. Those guys are really nice, all that sort of stuff as well.
So again, I can't thank you enough for bringing this stuff down and telling us a little bit about the history. A lot of families out there have this stuff. Look for it. Try to save it if you can. Pass it down to the family if you can. If you do sell it, or if you can give it back to the bodies, like the jewels and some other things, that's great. But if you do have to sell the item for whatever unknown reasons, is also document or have documentation with the item. Just don't say this was my grandfather's. If you know what lodge it came from, what year it was, so and so, that will add to the price to it. But also, it passes the history down to the next person who is going to buy that item and treasure it as a treasure for theirs, and they'll put it in a collection or in a collection. And the more history that piece has, the better off it is. So, Hank,
thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks for having me here.
If you like what you see, don't forget, give us a thumbs up. Follow us on Facebook. And we're going into another episode. Thank you.